Went to two buddies that were rich, and I said, hey guys, do you guys want to invest in this deal? It'd be $100,000 each, and we can take down this property. And they both shot me down. And they're like, no. I remember complaining to my coach, Jason. I was like, I'm terrible at raising money. I never want to raise money. I'm not going to ever raise money. A year later, I launched Open Door Capital, and now in the past 5 years of that, we've raised over $400 million. So what's up, everyone? Again, my name is Brandon Turner. Been investing in real estate since I was 21 years old. I remember though, I was probably like 30, and I decided I was gonna raise money. I'd never really raised money. I mean, I had a few partners here and there, like my parents partnered with me and some guy from church, but I'd never actually been like, hey, I'm gonna go raise money. So I remember going to two of my friends. I found a mobile home park that I was thinking about putting an offering on. Went to two buddies that were rich, and I said, hey guys, do you guys want to invest in this deal? It'd be $100,000 each, and we can take down this property. And they both shot me down. And they're like, no, nope, sorry. And I was so devastated because I got like that wound, like somewhere from my childhood about, getting rejected. And so I was just like, oh, see, nobody likes me and I'm terrible and this is awful. And I remember complaining to my coach, and I was like, I'm terrible at raising money. I never want to raise money. I'm not going to ever raise money. And he really worked me through kind of a mental reframing of that, with the idea of hey, maybe I've been bad at raising money, but I don't have to always be bad at raising money. In fact, I'm a money magnet. Money is attracted to me. And it was like this new identity around raising money. And I still didn't fully believe it. I was still kind of like, yeah, but it really sucks. I don't want to raise money ever. A year later, I launched Open Door Capital, and now in the past 5 years of that, we've raised over $400 million. So what changed? Couple of things. First of all, I cannot downplay or understate the importance of a personal brand in raising money. And obviously, I've got 400,000 followers on Instagram. I've got millions of downloads of the podcast, millions of copies of my book sold. And so it's not just having an audience. And the size of the audience doesn't even matter as much. Obviously, it scales. If you had 1 million people who know, like, and trust you, that's better than 10 people who know, like, and trust you. But you don't have to have 1 million people. You could have, a smaller amount of people who just know who you are. It doesn't have to be online. It can just be in real world. Just online is kind of a cheat code in terms of scaling the number of people who know, like, and trust you. So I definitely recommend it. The key though, I teach a ton because I want people to know that I actually understand this stuff. That's a piece of personal branding, but it's not enough for them just to think that I know about real estate, because those other guys in the industry, lots of people know about real estate. So they know, like, and trust me. It's those three things. They know me because I can reach a mass amount of people. That means getting on podcasts. It means having an Instagram account or TikTok, but I think Instagram's 10 times more important than TikTok. YouTube's really important if you're good on video, but it's having some sort of presence online so they know you. It's getting them to like you. How do you get people to like you? How do you do it in the real world? Read How to Win Friends and Influence People, first of all. A great book on getting people to like you. But I'll tell you a few secrets to that I've learned. Number one is everyone has 3 selves. There's the self that you put out to the world. It's your public self. And then there's your private self, which is the you that you put out to your family and the really close friends. And then there's your inner self. And only you know your inner self, like your inner thoughts and your inner attitudes and mindset. Most people on the internet only put out the public, that first kind of category of yourself. They put out the outward one. If you want to get people to like you, you introduce your inner, your personal life publicly. Now, I'm not saying necessarily go and just take pictures of all your lunch and all your food and put it out there on the internet, but I'm at least putting, I'm talking about my kids occasionally. I'm talking about my struggles. I'm talking about where I don't have a 6-pack, I've never had one, and I really wish I did. I've got some chunk fat here. That's a real statement. That is called being vulnerable, but it's also called being intentionally vulnerable. The idea of intentional vulnerability is I'm gonna say things and do things that will endear people to me. Talking about my faith. I'm not saying I'm using my faith, but I'm intentional about talking about my faith because that's gonna make people like me more. Oh, he's a guy with principles. Even non-Christian people tend to like that I have principles, some kind of moral basis to my life. And the fact that I talk about that shows that I've got some character, right? So I'm intentional about putting out content about my personal life in some ways. Yeah, personal branding. So that's number one, right? Is getting lots of people to know, like, and then trust you. The second piece is developing your list. At the end of the day, it's a giant funnel. Raising capital is a funnel. I took this idea to Open Door Capital when we launched, and I said, look, I've been involved in Bigger Pockets for years. I understand how a sales funnel works. In fact, growth of Bigger Pockets was largely led by the webinar strategy that I ran for 7 or 8 years. And it was all pioneered on a very simple funnel. People come to Bigger Pockets, they join the email list, or they make an account, And some of them come to a webinar, and on the webinar, some of them convert to a pro membership. And then the pro membership had a certain price attached to it. That's a funnel. So we might get 1 million people on the site, 10,000 give us their email address to join, 2,000 sign up for the webinar, 1,000 show up to the webinar, 100 sign up for a pro membership, and the average price of a pro membership is, $300 on that webinar. So we made whatever that is, $30,000. And then more importantly, as I said, I'm gonna do that every single solitary week without fail. And for 7 or 8 years, I did a webinar every week but like Christmas. For like 7 years, I would do a live webinar. Why? Because funnels matter. That's how you grow anything. And so in terms of raising capital, how many people know, like, and trust you? How many of those can you get onto a list? When I say a list, I'm talking about either a CRM or a spreadsheet or something that you can now have their name, email address, phone number, etc. I have an ebook that's called How to Invest $100,000 Passively into Real Estate. Who's going to click on that ad? Somebody who has $100,000 to invest in real estate and wants to do it passively. I've perfectly defined my avatar of a person who I want to raise money from, and then I put that free resource, which is actually a really helpful book. It actually talks people out of being a landlord, because at the end of the day, most landlords don't actually make cash flow anyway. They've just been saved from appreciation for the last 20 years. But there's not actually a lot of money today, especially today with interest rates. I should rewrite that book. There's no money in landlording today, with single family houses, that is anyway. So I put out that ebook, I put out a list, and I want to put out a product, or I want to put out information that's going to attract the right type of person. Now, if you don't want to do online that, you could go to the real world. Could you go to a local meetup? Could you be the speaker at a local meetup? No, that's scary, I know, but it's a skill you can develop. And again, if you're going to speak on something, I wouldn't do a speech on how to invest in my syndication. I mean, now you're just sales pitch. You don't want to sales pitch people. And what I like to do is I like to teach people how to do what I'm doing, and I know that 99% of them won't do it. I mean, can we be honest here? Is majority of the internet, majority of the world are just dreamers. They don't actually know how to take action. They will never do what you guys do. They'll never sign up for an actual program to learn how to develop real estate. Like, they're wishers or they're wanters. And so I will teach the wishers and wanters all day. But my goal is that they'll finally realize, you know what? I'm not going to do this myself. I'll just give my money to Brandon. Then we move down the funnel. If we're talking, again, funnel, we got lots of people who know who you are. Then some of them get on your list. Then you engage those people on the list and keep them active, keeping them liking you, keeping them knowing what you're doing. Instagram's a great way to get passively to do that, but email lists are a good way to get that actively, like send out an email every month. Before you even have a deal, you need to build a list. But how do you build a list if you don't have a deal? And that's the sample deal. Put together a really nice document that shows what you would buy if the right deal came up. It could be a real deal that sold 6 months ago or that one of your friends bought, but you'd say, hey, look, so I'm doing this money-raising deal on a development. I'm getting development. I got a really cool, kind of a strategy. This is the type of deal I'm doing. And you show them and you impress them. And then you've got to, when you have a deal, that's when you got to pitch. That's when you got to pitch well. Don't underestimate the power of pitching and design and clarity and consistency and color. And you want it to look good. I would guess that 95% of people do not have the skill set needed to accurately and professionally pitch a deal that you're trying to raise money for. I mean, you could maybe hire a designer to do it for you. You could put a rough draft together, but it's got to be simple. It's got to be clear. It's got to be concise. It's got to be what's in it for them. And one of the best ways to do this, honestly, is just to rip off and duplicate. Just go download one of Open Door Capital's pitch decks and look at it and be like, all right, I'm just going to make my own version of this. And then maybe you give it to a designer and be like, I want you to change the colors and all that. But you can just rip off and duplicate somebody else's. Not their deal, but the way that they pitch, why not? And the most important piece of that, honestly, is the deal, right? It's got to be a good deal.